Yo, welcome everybody. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing.
Well, TCR TeeJay is the Season 13 Golden Class Champion for Trinity Competitive Racing.
Oh, let's go, dude! Yes!
Jabbar on the podium! He's on it by a 10! Gentlemen, side by side through one. And silent, and Seabreeze gets a half spin.
Let's fucking go!
Wheel bumping. DRS enable, let's do it. And Captain Blade battling it out for position. Captain Blade. Ickle, what the? Then McChicken goes around and he also makes
rewind down the front straight. Oh my god.
I gotta check the heart rate.
Why do we do this? Because of nights like this.
Yo, welcome everybody to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing, and welcome to episode number 17 of the Racing Debrief, TCR's podcast where we combine the world of e-racing, sim racing, and TCR with real-life motorsports and Formula One. A true racing enthusiast. Listen, I'm your host, C. Freeze, alongside co-hosts Camden, Luca, and Chabar, as well as producer behind the scenes, D'Angelo, and we are joined here today by your season 13 Golden Class champion and current driver of the Platinum class in the Red Bull, TeeJay. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for having me on the podcast. It's been quite a while, but finally made it, huh?
Yeah, we've been wanting to get you on here, and it only took 17 tries. So we finally got you on here, and we're going to talk about the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and F1 season 2022 as it is coming to an end. Yeah, let's. I think we should talk about Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
Did we all race
at 8 a.m.?
Did we all watch it? Who watched the entirety of the race live?
I did.
I watched entirety not live.
I saw the highlights.
I didn't watch it at all.
Damn. Why
You
not?
don't even know what happened.
I didn't wake up till like 12 p.m. So
Damn.
Okay.
I woke up at
and-
1:30.
Well, I had
wow.
work at 8:30, so I had to be up for. So I was
just
watching
sleep
it
at,
on my
like,
way to work.
4:30.
And I watched it live with a lot of sleeping in between. I had my alarm clock because I knew it was an 8 o'clock start. It was an early one. It was Abu Dhabi. I had it, and I'm like, you know what? I made the mistake. I should have got up, and I honestly should have made my cup of coffee. And I didn't, so I laid in bed still. And then I hear Crafty in the background. 5 red lights, and away we go. I'm like, oh shit!
It's go time already?
Like I missed the formation lap. I missed everything, and then I was looking. I was like, all right, let's start to stay awake a little bit. I watched a few laps, and I fell asleep for 5 laps. And I look at it; it's like lap 45. And I'm like, oh, Max is leading by 10.7 seconds. I'm like, okay, I didn't miss much.
The thing is, like I actually woke up at 8 o'clock. You know, I set my alarm. I was gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna watch the race. I've gotten to this point in the season to where it's like, is it even worth getting up? Like Max is gonna win. Lewis will get screwed over somehow, and that's literally what happened. I woke up a couple hours later, and I'm like, it literally happened. Like, good thing I slept in.
Well, this has been known in the Discord. Check out TCR Discord, link in the description. I like to sleep in. I need to sleep in to recharge for the whole week. So I record the races and then wake up whenever I do. Today was 1:30. Go get a bagel, come back, start watching the race, and I also set up a focus mode on my phone every Sunday morning. It turns on. I get no notifications from like the Scores app, which could give me spoilers. I mute Discord. I mute some friends that might text me about the race. So I don't know anything going into watching the race at 3 p.m. today.
Yeah, that's that widget you were talking about.
Yeah.
Last
Well, no.
episode,
I
right?
mean, there's also the widget, but this is a focus mode on my phone.
Oh, okay.
The
There's that
iPhone.
too.
Yeah.
It's the way to go, honestly.
My phone is always on focus all day because I don't want nobody bothering me.
I have it on Do Not Disturb.
That's
Don't
a
be
focus.
talking to me.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
same thing.
change it much. Um, yeah, but coming into like this race, I like a lot of things were already wrapped up. There's a few things I wanted to like pay attention to, and it was between Leclerc and Perez for P2 in the championship, because that was, for some reason, I feel like a lot more than this year than ever in previous years. They hyped that up a lot for whatever reason. They're like, "Oh, who's gonna take second in the championship?" It's like I don't really know why we're really focused. They just need something to be focusing on since Max won it so many races before.
Yeah, and it was like tied going into it, so it is kind of a
Mm.
big showdown for a podium position in championship. So can't fault them for trying to hype it up.
Yeah, but Leclerc got it in the end, and there was also the Mercedes Ferrari battle that it seemed unlikely for them to kind of flip that many points. I think it was 19 points, which seemed unlikely that they would get that big of a deficit to make Mercedes P2. That didn't happen. Then you also had I have a lot to talk about on is Vettel's last race, or if it is, and Aston Martin potentially getting Alfa Romeo, which they ended up tied, but Alfa Romeo was able to keep that. I think, I don't know if you guys can look it up, but I don't know. Is it whoever was leading like already that keeps that position in the constructor, since Alfa Romeo was already, I think it was 55 points and Aston Martin was at 50. But
No,
because they were ahead already, they get to keep it.
no, I think it's based on whoever has the highest finish in the season. It's like based on position.
Okay, I got it. So in the event of a tie in the drivers' championship, to break the tie in this order, one, whichever team gets the most wins. Or wait, this is for drivers' championship.
Gotta
Yeah.
say that, Jabbar.
Never mind.
Because I know for drivers it is wins, then what, podiums, and then they go down the order. But for
Well, it
constructors,
would just
I
go
don't know how they do that.
second. It goes for drivers, it's wins, then second place, then third. Maybe it's the same.
Or on the broadcast or the live stream, the F1 TV commentator said based on whoever had the highest position finish. So like if one team had a fourth position and they were tied, whichever one had the like higher finish in that season would get the point.
So would that be Bottas then? Like earlier on in the season, he had some
Yeah,
really good performances. I
yeah,
think he might have finished fourth or fifth.
yeah, because he finished fourth, and
Mhm.
Sebastian or the Aston Martins didn't finish any positions higher than that, so they took it.
Oh wow. So yeah, those were the storylines that I was kind of looking at.
Haas edged out AlphaTauri.
Yeah, barely. And they said that that was their goal in this season, was that finish eighth, which was,
That's a pretty good spot for
yeah,
considering where they were last year.
I think so. I think they accomplished that, and well, obviously they did, but I think they did. That it wasn't like it was a P8 and they scored 3 points. Like they still
Yeah,
scored 30 something. So they
37.
had to do something to get there. And in previous seasons we've seen like the last, maybe not as of late, but I know we've had at some point or another like the bottom three teams like barely getting like double digit points. So a lot of that came down to luck of how many people DNF'd or something. But I mean, Haas started off strong and then kind of had spotty races here and there, but they had a good season from where they were last year for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
But like on the track, I think there was really just one thing that happened in the whole like first 2/3 of the race. Would you agree?
um, sure. What would you say?
I think it was Carlos and Lewis battling.
Yeah, and he
The
got airborne
yeah,
for
well,
sure.
because he went somewhere you're not supposed to. He went out of bounds. So If
Yeah,
you go out of
he
bounds, you
jumped
might run into some
yellow
obstacles.
curbs. Yeah. But he jumped them really good.
He loves cutting that chicane. I've noticed that.
Yeah, this was second year in a row.
Yeah, second year in a row.
I thought the racing here with these new cars were pretty good. I don't know how many overtakes there actually was statistically and compared it to like last year or the last era of cars, but I felt like overtaking was a lot easier and possible than previous. Do you guys agree with that?
I think so, yeah.
At one point, I think Brundle was complaining that they gotta like nerf the DRS because he's saying DRS should help you just get into a position to overtake in the braking zone, but there's just too many overtakes happening in the middle of the straight.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Because it's really because at Abu Dhabi you have like those two straights back to back, and I think that's more or less the problem. If they shrink maybe the first DRS zone, then it leads a little bit more into the second
Back to back
straightaway.
is a lot.
Yeah, and I think the DRS zone I think is one detection zone, or no?
Is that even
I
a
don't.
thing?
Yeah, no, they have that. Mexico has that. You could the detection zone off the final corner, and then you get the DRS if you're behind the car second for the front straightaway, and then between turn 3 and 4. But for Abu Dhabi, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it is. But I thought the racing was pretty good. I did see that on the opening lap. That a lot of it was a blur to me. It seemed like there was a strategy between one or a two. It seemed like the two was a little bit better. One stop, you kind of like Vettel did the one stop. Perez was going for a one, I believe, and then the team said to switch to a two, which kind of hurt them. But other than that, and then we had that spin,
Leclerc
which
stayed
I
on a
didn't.
one stop.
Did he? Oh, okay. He had a good race too. Ferrari bounced back a little bit this weekend. Ended off the season pretty well, and they claim both P2s in the championships.
You mentioned the spins.
Yeah, the
synchronized spinning.
it literally looked like an edited video clip when I first saw it because I didn't see that live. I didn't know that happened because I was probably sleeping until after the fact of I saw it on Twitter or whatever, and I'm like, oh. It just seemed very clumsy between two drivers that aren't going to be on the grid next
I saw
year.
a different tweet that's saying that those two drivers leaving the sport wanted to get their own donuts in.
Yeah.
Nick and Latifi.
Yeah, what do you guys think about the so yeah, I mean the race was it is what it is. We'll get to the donuts in a minute at the end of the race. Let's go to what was it
There was
some
Alonso and
people
Seb battling for a while.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that.
It was right when like some of the leaders were pitting, they would fall back, and then Seb and Alonso were using those other cars as pawns to like block off each other too. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and then you also had Ocon and Vettel battle in the beginning a little bit. That was actually I did see that, and that was a good battle there between Alpine and Aston Martin. But then, so there was a lot of controversy last week at Brazil where Max didn't let Perez by when the team said that he can get the position, try to get Alonso at the end, and if not, you'd have to replace it back. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter as far as it wouldn't have impacted it. But a lot of people still think of like more of the action than the results, which is fine. You can do that whatever way you like. But today, some people were saying, "Oh, how come Max didn't, slow down after the 7-second gap that he had to try and force Leclerc to get pretty much stalled, so that Perez can come back and overtake him?" I think it's the silliest argument ever in F1. Like, at the end of the day, Red Bull had the quickest car this weekend, and Perez still couldn't beat a Ferrari who did a one-stop. Like, okay. Like, the Red Bull's the quicker car. Like, Max can't drive your car for you as well. I mean, Perez should have been able to beat Leclerc without any help today, given the car, given this. I mean, he qualified P2. So that argument of Max should have backed off his lead to put his race in jeopardy to win, even though everything was wrapped up, just so he can help Perez, because Perez helped Max last year, is silly, because there's two entirely different scenarios. One was for a world championship, a first world championship, and many years for Red Bull, and the other is for a P2 in the championship. I think it's very
also
silly.
another aspect of it being an entirely different scenario. Last year, Checo was the slower car defending a faster car from getting past him, not Max in a faster car slowing down to slow down the slower car. I think it was totally different.
Yeah.
Plus, he would give Leclerc DRS.
Yeah, what happens if if they lose the race? I mean, they lose the race, but like you don't want to go through all that. It's just silly. At the end of the day, Perez has to, beat Leclerc in that situation if he wants P2. At the end of the day, he did not. He had a great season though.
Max did all he could. He gave some sound advice to go full send, and Checo tried but came up short.
And the interesting thing too about Leclerc beating Perez for second in the points, what this means is that the driver who has won the first race of the season each year since 2017 has come second in the championship.
Oh, what a stat.
So you don't want to win the first race of the season, it seems like.
Wow.
I saw that on Twitter today as well, and I think that's an interesting stat. So that means that Rosberg won the opening race in 2016, and then he got the title in 16. I guess that would break the stat, so interesting.
What's going on in Bahrain?
Well, back then it was Australia, as for most
right.
of those
Yeah,
years.
when did that switch?
Nico
20
Rosberg won the first
20?
race of 2016.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Was 2020 originally supposed to start in Australia, but then didn't because they had to redo the COVID schedule?
Yeah, like they flew
right.
into Australia. Yeah, they were
Right,
there.
That's how Drive to Survive starts.
Yeah, with
like one of
that
those
guy with the funny, the guy with the funny mustache, whatever his name is. He's like was talking to a whole bunch of reporters, and everybody's like, "Yeah, we're in a global pandemic. This might get dangerous," and everybody's just so close to him, trying to get the answers. So, breathing on each other, sneezing on each other. Yeah, we don't know why we're here. Whatever. And we all know what happened after. But I think Bahrain is a better opening race, but. What is it next year?
I think it's Bahrain again.
Bahrain? Okay. No complaints there. Bahrain's a good opener for F1 season. Australia could wait, I think.
Yeah, I can confirm March 5th, Bahrain.
Oh, wow.
That early? Wow.
Yeah.
24 races to fit in.
I think he said, 110 or so, 109 days? It's until the lights out already, and it's like...
Yeah, they showed like 247 days is how long this season was. I may have messed up the number, but it was something like that. And it was the longest F1 season in history, and then next year they're going to beat it.
24 races.
What'd you say, TeeJay?
It's meant to be broken after all.
Yeah, they are. Records are meant to be broken. You know what record just got broken today? The Lewis Hamilton win streak record.
Oh.
Yep. For 15 years, man.
Yeah, wow.
Is that the longest streak for winning?
Yeah. Yep.
Gotta be,
yeah.
Wow.
The season.
Yeah, thus far.
So is Max gonna beat it? Does he have a win?
Is he in?
No. No.
What do you mean no?
Yeah.
You
It's
constantly and very quickly
definitely
of a lap.
possible. Yeah.
It's definitely. But he won in 16. Did he win in 17?
I'll look it up.
Yeah, look it up, Chabar. Do the statistics. I think he has won in every season since 20.
So he won 2016.
Maybe not 17.
Yes, 17 he won Malaysia and Mexico. 18, 19, 20. Yeah, he's won every year since 16.
Yeah, so it's
So how
definitely
many is
possible.
that? How
Seven
many is
years.
that?
18, 19. Yes,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's 7 in.
Damn.
so yeah, like he's halfway, almost full.
So he's about halfway there.
Yeah, halfway in the race. So it's possible, very possible.
I think
Yo,
Red Bull
time
will fall off.
flies though. 7 years?
Yeah. Wow.
The
I mean,
hell?
like records like that are crazy because like it's really hard to win once, and to sustain that for so long is very difficult.
Yep.
But he's only, what is he, 24 years old
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the leading constructor. Like there's no sign. He's 25 now. There's no reason as of now to say that he has no chance to beat that record.
No, I think it's a great opportunity, but also his contract, isn't he in Red Bull until what, 2028?
Yeah.
Yeah, was it
So-
28 or I remember hearing like an 8-year contract. Could be both.
Okay, so let's say if he does, so how many would that be?
I
You got
think the
23, 24,
the
25.
biggest risk for him
There's
not
6.
beating the record might be him quitting, just retiring.
I think he'd get around
What you think?
like 13 seasons in a row if he won every year until 2028, which I think if he does, well, he would stick out Red Bull's contract for sure, I believe, but you never know what could happen. But you probably I think unless he wants to go to another team, I think he'll be at Red Bull for almost his entire career, unless the new 2026 engine regulations change Red Bull, and then eventually he'll go to like Audi or something, like a team he wants to go. Kind of like Vettel, he wanted to go to Ferrari and try that out because that was his favorite team. But I don't know if Max wants to go to like a Ferrari or another team, or if he's just wants to win. It doesn't matter what team he's
I don't
in.
see him wanting to do another team unless it's a better team at the time. I think he's mentioned sometimes of like, yeah, when GP leaves, I leave, or yeah, I'm gonna finish my contract and then I might just like retire. So I think he's a bigger risk of retiring than leaving Red Bull.
I'd kind of agree too, because I mean, by the time by the time that contract is over, he'll be like a big, like 15 years or so career, and he's only like low 30s or so. Like he'll be
In
31.
6 years, yeah, in 6 years he'll be 31.
That's incredible. He came in so early, and he kind of like enforced a rule of like, oh, you have to actually be a certain age.
You
before
need to have a
can-
driver's license to be in F1.
Like you'll never see that again. He'll be like the last person to ever do that.
It was so good. Like, so I mean,
Having rules written, like having them write rules because of what you did is like, as long as it's not a scandalous reason, like that's one of the highest praises you can get.
Like rewriting the all lapped cars should go from Abu Dhabi. Is that a good thing to have on
Well,
the?
Hey, they didn't do that in Brazil this year. Yuki got left back.
Well, that's
Where
on
was- where was-
Yuki. I don't know what
No,
Yuki
why was it on
was
Yuki?
doing.
They didn't allow him to unlap himself. They said the two other, I think it was Alban Latifi, and then they just like left
no,
Yuki.
no, they
They
let
didn't
him.
follow procedure.
No,
Oh,
they let him.
where's the outcries about Brazil 2022?
They let him unlap himself. They just didn't let him get to the back of the pack. That's two
No,
different
there
things.
was on the graphic in like is what's it called? Race control. Cars 23 Alb 6 Lat to unlap themselves.
Yeah, but they
It
let
didn't say
Yuki.
anything about 22 or Yuki.
They let Yuki on later, but they didn't let him catch to the back up. They didn't let him catch up to the back of the pack.
So they didn't follow procedures. George's win is tainted.
Oh man.
Sounds like a typical Red Bull fan right there.
Well, I think we have an even nice split here. Camden and TeeJay. You guys are Mercedes, right? You guys are more of a Mercedes guys.
Correct.
TeeJay, is that you? You're
Yep.
Mercedes.
Yep.
And then Chabar, you're Red Bull.
Yep.
D'Angelo,
Yes,
are you Red Bull as well, or who are you? Who do you root for?
I am Red Bull man.
Damn. I'm like the only Ferrari guy here. I guess you can say Ferrari. I wouldn't really choose. So I guess I'm the mediator here. But
It sounds like you're rather neutral, but Ferrari.
yeah. Although I'm not. I was more a Ferrari fan when Vettel and Kimi were there, and but then Leclerc I like, but I wouldn't know if I don't really care for Sainz in that second seat, to be honest with you. But it's I guess I really hope they're talking about in the news recently is Ferrari going to change, and this is a point I was thinking of the last week, and we'll finish up Abu Dhabi and talk about the season in a whole. But there was talks of Bonado, Mattia Bonado, I think is his full name, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He is potentially not going to be the big guy at Ferrari next year, and it's going to be the Alfa Romeo
Frederick
team boss.
Vasseur,
Yes,
something like that.
and he possibly will be the new team boss. Now, my whole thing is like if you think about other teams in F1, like you see that relationship between driver and team boss, Hamilton and Toto, and even when Bottas was there and George, that you can see Toto cares and he's very vocal about to them. They're personal. Obviously, Christian Horner and Max Verstappen. You also had when Zach Brown at McLaren with Lando and Ricardo. Like I think that's a good relationship there. Gunther and Magnussen, and when Grosjean was there. Like I think the team like when you think of team bosses and their relationship with their drivers, those are all pretty good examples. And there's even more. Ferrari, I don't see that with, and I feel like that's a problem. I don't see Bonado so much like having a great relationship with Leclerc and Sainz. And even when Arriva Bene was there, Maurizio Arriva Bene, even him, I felt like it was not as in tune as the other teams. And I think that could impact the success of the team because it really does start at the top and work its way down. So I think you need a character like that. And for Alfa Romeo, I think that team boss moving up, I think a change needs to happen after this season. So I'm hoping that does happen.
There was a report 3 days ago that Leclerc has not spoken with Binotto for several months.
Yeah, see what I mean?
I don't think it's been confirmed, but it has been like reported, and it wouldn't shock me either. And I saw some speculation that it was when like Binotto was like scolding Leclerc, which maybe that was Silverstone. I don't remember Do you remember that happening? Where that may have been? He like after the race, he like had like a hand on his shoulder, wagging his finger at him.
Yeah, it was Silverstone.
Yeah, after like the strategy disagreements.
And if you look back at it, like when Seb was still in Ferrari, I felt like Bernardo and Charles had a good relationship, but then I think they fell out in the current season because I
Yeah,
think it was
not
pretty
surprising.
obvious that Seb and Bernardo didn't like each other. So
Yeah, I think change definitely needs to happen for sure because I don't think it's working there. But just to kind of close up on Abu Dhabi as a whole, I saw going back to obviously Sebastian Vettel's last race. I saw something on Twitter. It said that it was like a meme, or maybe in the Discord you guys might have sent it, and it was a meme of like Hamilton and Alonso like saying to Vettel that, "Hey, are we gonna do donuts after the race?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. We'll be there." And only Vettel was there because the other cars broke down. And honestly, if their cars would have got to the end, I think 100% they both would have done donuts together because they did that to Alonso when he left. The first time when he retired or whatever.
Yeah, are they gonna
But
do that again? Like when he retires? Like how many times can you keep doing that? It kind of loses its luster when he comes back.
Yeah, I think the second time is like your true go away. I don't think anyone's really came back 3 times. But if it were to happen to anybody, it'd be Alonso. He'll be like 54. Yeah. I'm still fighting for that third championship, but get me back in the car. I'll go back to Alpine. um, but yeah, it was, what, like this for me, my like first experience with F1 was obviously I've talked about it in like one of the first episodes, but just briefly, you know, starting with the F1 games and also watching in real life. I was always a Ferrari fan and I always chose that team when I played the game, and Vettel, for whatever reason, was the first one I chose when I did racing on that 2015 game back at that time. He was at Ferrari. So a lot of the whole time I've been watching the sport was revolved around him and, his time at Ferrari and then obviously going to Aston Martin. So it's going to feel weird for him not to be on the grid next year. And it's kind of like, man, I got to really find someone else to really like root for because he was kind of my guy. So I don't know how it'll change for me. Obviously, a lot of people had him as a favorite or looked up to him in some way, but this it, honestly, they did a really good job. Everybody giving and showing respect to Sebastian before this weekend, but it was like almost too much for even me to like look at. It was like, all right, we get it. It's his last race, but it seemed like there was so much respect given to him. It's like it was too much lovey-dovey for me, honestly. There was some um it was something I saw on social media as well. It was Lewis Hamilton, I guess, initiated a dinner with all 20 drivers. Did you guys see that?
I did.
Yeah, and they had the seating arrangement, I guess if that was true, like where they actually sat in the bill and everything. I thought that was good. Every driver went there as well. And everybody's saying it in the interviews, the press conferences. So Vettel ran around with a whole bunch of drivers and crew members around Abu Dhabi, and it was just like a lot of like ceremonies. His father was there, which we didn't really see too much of throughout his career, at least I haven't. So it was good to see that, but it was a good send off. And personally, I think there's a good chance he does return. Alonso and Hamilton both say he will be back. I
Mm,
tend to think there's an opportunity for him to come back because I feel like the real reason he's leaving is because the car's not competitive and it's not interesting to him. He wants a fast car, and I think he doesn't want to be trumbling around for many years in the back, kind of, like Alonso didn't really want that when he left when he was with McLaren. So I think if he does come back, it's going to be with an opportunity, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, which he's young too. Like he's younger than Hamilton, and obviously younger than Alonso, and he came back a lot older. So I think there is an opportunity for him to come back if there's a seat available that seeks his interest. But I can also see him really saying that's enough. I did my career, and I'm all set with that. But I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, I think, well, we will know eventually, but I buy the retirement. He like doing the post-race interview, he seems really content with the decision. Like I expected him to be crying, but he's just like, "Yeah, I'm done." That's what the vibe I caught off of it was. As for like the level of the theatrics of the retirement, it makes sense. He's a four-time champion, but it was just a little bit awkward considering there's like three other drivers with their last race also.
Yeah, although so like his attitude, Vale's attitude, I did see that. Like he wasn't crying, he wasn't emotional about it because I really do think he's like, you know, like I think it's like he's a very competitive person, but I really think in the back of his mind there might be an opportunity for him to return. Like I think he kind of like when Alonso left, he wasn't crying. I mean, Kimmy didn't either, but Kimmy doesn't give a fuck. Um, like, I don't know. I feel like there's an opportunity there, but like as far as the other drivers, like I do think Ricardo will be back on the grid. Um, I think obviously Latifi doesn't have the career like Vettel does, so there shouldn't be any expectation of ceremonies for
I
him.
wanted Latifi donuts.
Yeah, I don't know. And obviously Schumacher, and I don't know, he's so young. There's nothing to really go with there. But there's really no other driver that's like truly retiring. They just don't have a seat next year. Vettel said he was retiring. Ricardo never said he was retiring. He just thought he'll be back. And obviously we saw in the news that Hulkenberg is coming back to join Haas. So there was obviously Mick Schumacher is out of the seat, but I mean, Hulkenberg's coming back. He never said he was retiring, but he's coming back at like 37 age. So if he's coming back at that point, I think there's still an opportunity. Like Vettel has another 8 years to decide if he wants to come back or not, and there's a lot that changes in the sport over that time. But
You said that Seb's been your guy, so you don't know who's like next. Do you think you're more likely to pick one of the rookies since that's like a clean slate, whereas all the other drivers you have watched and they have not been your guy?
yeah, I mean,
You got an American coming.
yeah, I mean, we'll see how he goes. It depends. Like, I'm not like obviously Vettel was my favorite driver, but I like I wouldn't say I hate any driver. Besides maybe Sonoda, he took my number 22. But other than that,
Imagine hitting him for that.
yeah, no, that was a personal attack. That was personal. That really was personal. Um, I don't know. I do like Leclerc. At first, I didn't really like him because he came in and he was kind of taking the team away from Vettel, but Vettel kind of gave respect back to Leclerc, saying, how talented he is, and, kind of like um, giving him a platform in the future, like kind of um, like trading the baton off to Leclerc to do well in his career. So I could see myself going well with Leclerc. Obviously, he's at Ferrari, so there's a link there. I like Lando. I think he's good. Ricardo. There's a whole bunch of people I like. It's just whether or not you can truly feel passionate about that driver. So when they win, you also feel like you won. And that was with Vettel. When he lost, I felt it. When he won, you kind of feel it as well. Um, but time will tell. There's different teams too. Like, I like Ferrari. I do like Haas. Aston Martin is that whole branding of the last few years is interesting to see how they'll be in the future. So yeah, I think it'll just be over time. We'll see how next season goes when he's not on the grid, but I don't know. I don't know how it'll be very weird for me to not have him on the grid. I mean, we he did miss a few Grand Prix due to COVID, but that's different scenario. But and then the last thing about I guess this race was the Haas and about the donuts. Mick started to do donuts, and then the team said stop doing them. Did anybody
Yeah, I
read
saw
into
that.
that too much?
Yeah, so there's some theories of like, were they telling him not to do donuts because like he doesn't deserve it, or because he wasn't in that alleged celebratory donut location on the straight? Uh, I don't know. It did come off kind of harsh from the engineer side, and Mick's like, "All right, I love you," like sarcastically back to him.
When
I
I heard
think
It's
that,
he's
weird.
hurt.
yeah, I was disappointed because regardless of what he's done or how you feel about him, at least like show him some respect. Like, you can't just be like. I think the way they told him off was what got and he ticked off.
Yeah.
Although
then
the second token is, if the team, if let's say, because they know this is the last race, it's pretty, a lot of drivers do like to do donuts at the end of the season, at the end of the final race. So, maybe FIA or F1 said something in the pre-race to say if you're going to do donuts, only these certain people could at this location or whatever. And, maybe they don't want to get fined, at the last race for doing donuts. So he just said to stop. So like
I
you
think
also have to think about that,
Yeah, I
off the
agree,
I
but
don't.
like you could change your tone too. Like you could be like, "Hey, I don't think you should do this right here, right now." Like they told us not to, but he's like, "Mick, stop this immediately."
Well,
Like
he didn't say that, but
he kind of
yeah,
did.
But like the way he said it, like that's how he that's how he came off.
Yeah, his tone wasn't like apologetic at all.
yeah. Well, he's not on the seat next year,
And
so.
then the broadcast didn't pick it up, but Danny also did some donuts.
Yeah, I think they gotta work on those F1 TV directors, bro. Cause
Well, when was that? They're probably like interviewing Seb while Mick is finishing the race and then doing some donuts. Oh, that reminds me. Like, how about when Lewis DNF'd and like you see his name dropping down the standings, and then it just gets caught. It gets caught because Albon had like a 48-second gap, and then he's like out of the car, like wiping his face down, and then you still have like Latifi and I think Magnussen overtaking him. He was done for so long before he got last.
a week.
Yeah, that's the first mechanical issue for Mercedes this year, I believe.
It's the first Lewis
Camden would
mechanical
know.
DNF since Austria 2018.
Really?
Yeah, so that's before I even ever started watching. Like it's crazy how his car never fails.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the reliability doesn't get enough credit as it probably should at Mercedes. Um, there's a few other, so I read that on Reddit, the first mechanical DNF since Austria 2018. There's a few other stats here. Also his worst drivers championship finish ever at 6th, which happened due to the DNF because that helped Sainz pass him for 5th. Only the 3rd time he's been beaten by his teammate. I think that's it.
How do you feel, Camden or TeeJay, on the Mercedes season this year after you've seen a lot of successful years of him, and this being the first season since obviously 2016 when Rosberg won the championship that he got beat by not a rookie, but a new driver in the team in the first season. We saw that with Leclerc beat Vettel in his first season. We also see Sainz beat Leclerc in his first season at Ferrari last season, and now Russell beats Hamilton in his first season with the team. Also getting the team's only win, obviously. A lot of variables there, but how do you see that? Is it frustrating that Russell beat Hamilton? Do you look into that, or is it situational?
I think the biggest thing, though, you have to remember is that Lewis was kind of the test dummy at the beginning of the season to where he was trying a bunch of different things for the team. And even then, like, he wasn't DNFing, he was still managing to get points. So, really, I think Lewis was on par with Russell this season. It just happened that Russell was the one that got a win. There were several scenarios where Lewis could have won races and came really close. Mexico was one of them. And I
Not
do
that
like
close.
the way that they finished. Yeah, I do like the way they finished off the season. I think they're in a good spot for 2023. This was kind of a lame duck year, kind of a reset year for them, and I think they'll be in a good spot next season.
And TeeJay, what do you think?
I agree with what Camden has said. Like, I mean, I think there's a quote that say what goes up must surely comes down. I mean, when you have that level of success for a while, I think you kind of get timid with things. So I feel like I agree with what Camden said. Like, this is a reset year for them. Because, like, now they look back, now they put in a situation where they haven't been, and they learn that, oh, wow, it's pretty hard to, like, to actually keep winning races, so we got to work harder. even though we've been up there for a while, it's like you learn new things. I think from your failures is when you learn you learn and improve more. So I think next season you're gonna come in stronger and better. And considering right regarding George and Lewis's finishing positions, like Camden said, Lewis has been running the test setups, or he's been doing the testing all season long. So like for him to like finish, yeah, I think he made a couple of mistakes and had a couple of DNF. I think wait, did he have? Well, didn't score points in some races because he was doing the like due to him testing the car and stuff. So yeah, like it's not a bad thing. I mean, George is an excellent driver. He proved that he had the talent and he did his job. He finished ahead of Rose, but that doesn't really tell the story. Like there are so many factors involved that probably caused that. So it doesn't really affect me much. But what I know is when they come together next season with a good car, then we could actually determine who the top dog or who the alpha driver is. So yeah.
I think something that was
I've
really good with George Russell too. Like you mentioned, TJ, like he's a great driver. 15 of the first 16 races of the season, George Russell finished in the top 5, and the only one out of those 16 where he didn't was in Britain when he got out of the car, and they basically told him, you know, you can't continue the race. So I mean, Russell was on it this season,
Yeah,
just
you would.
really
Yep.
impressive.
Like for a rookie and a new car in the Mercedes team, like you proved that you deserve that spot, and I'm glad he's there.
I pulled up Lewis's results from this season. He started the season P3 in Bahrain on the podium. In round 4 Imola, he finished P13 out of the points, and then Belgium he retired because he tried crashing out Alonso, and then today the technical DNF. So that's 1, 2, 3 results outside of the points all
I
season.
like the way you put that. Try crashing
Right?
Alonso.
Jeez.
I think he's learning from Max then.
Wait, what happened with Alonso and what happened?
In Belgium, when Lewis
they
tried to
came
kill
together.
Alonso.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, okay. Yeah, that was a long time ago. A long time
Yeah,
Yeah,
ago.
Longest
Jabbar's still
season.
not over that.
The season is like
I'm not. I'm over it. I was never not over it. I'm just recalling the results from the season to aid TJ's claims.
Jabbar never gets over nothing, bro. We all know that.
And
Hey,
you're holding a grudge like Hamilton or Alonso.
it's
I guess
I
either
don't
or.
know. Like maybe if they come back with a better car next season, it could be a more fun season for everyone.
Well, how do
Or
you
maybe he's
guys?
washed.
I
But it
don't
sounds
think
like a
so.
lot of excuses from the Mercedes camp.
No, because we have the rebel people complaining, oh, they have a quick car again. We gotta ban them.
Right? Like they should be the last people complaining about quick cars. Like Max, like you
Who's
couldn't
complaining
ask for
about a
a
quick
quick
car?
car.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All the
It's kind of
invention,
almost boring.
all the invention that Mercedes brought throughout
Suffering from
2021,
success.
the what you call it, the DAS, or ban it. The party mode, or ban it.
Hey,
Like
stop breaking rules. Like
I was trying, I
Red
was
Bull
trying,
has the best car within the rule book, and it's dominant. It's almost boring how great we are.
oh
Didn't they literally
after
break the
they
budget cap?
yeah, breaking budget,
Oh,
right?
don't go. That was last season,
Yeah, it carries on to the season too. I hope you
dude.
know that.
Don't the budget cap. They had a nice dinner. Like, who cares?
Yeah, the dinner money from the car that they were supposed to work on, they exceeded that, so they didn't have money for dinner, so they had
It
to
was
spend
like,
more money for dinner. Ain't no way.
what was the final count? Like $100,000.
It was
That's
less
like
than
a wheel and a
5%.
half.
It was less than 5% over, which honestly, and obviously you would like things to balance out, but it wasn't extremely over it. And even Aston Martin had.
If they didn't have to rebuild a whole fleet of cars after Hungary, maybe they don't spend over 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, well, they weren't the only team that had problems with the budget, so Aston Martin had issues in a different way. I don't think they went necessarily over the budget, but they didn't follow a procedure when they were supposed to submit something, and they got a fine as well. So it's the first year they're doing it. I don't think there's any intent in breaking it. We'll see after this year. Obviously, they have to go
That's
through all of it and check, but I'm sure there'll be maybe a team that might be in a breach of something. I don't know if they'll be over as far as money, how much, but I think we're pretty early into this budget cap in F1 to figure
That's my
out.
favorite rebuttal from Mercedes fans. Just because Red Bull had an accidental rounding error of a margin, they're like, okay, let's see what Mercedes overspends a bunch and creates the best car. They must get the same punishment then. But like, no, the key thing is they're accidental and how little they went over.
Accidental or not, you still went over the budget. Period.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
got
and
a
they
big
got punished
penalty,
accordingly.
and yeah, that's fine.
Honestly,
That.
I thought it was too harsh, but they got
Some
punished.
people were saying, "Oh, you got to take away the constructors' championship. You got to
That was
dock them
far-fetched.
this," and
That
it's
was
like, come on,
far-fetched.
what do we, what do we
No,
like?
I disagree with
no.
that. That's not necessary.
It's a
Far-fetched.
financial pen. It should be if you went over the budget, so it should be a financial penalty. If you want to dock them any wind tunnel time, you can do that too. Similar to if you go over in MLB baseball, you get less draft picks, or and you get docked, taxed on money. So that's fine, but you're not going to take away a championship over. You went over the budget by.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Come on.
And it should,
Let's stay civil here, guys.
yeah, and it's all scaling. You go over by $15, like it's gonna be not the same penalty as if you overspend by $50 million and just totally neglect the cap.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Absolutely. How do you guys feel this season went? Because personally, obviously last season was a crazy season. I think it was a very hype season. A lot of stuff happened. A lot of intense races. Championship battle that went to the end of the season finale between two teams and two different drivers. Tied on points. Obviously, we know how that ended, but throughout the entire season, we had great races. We also had those, what I call them, heartstring races. Pretty much races that something nice happens, like Ricardo won Italy last year. Though that was one of those races. Brazil last week was one of those races, with Russell and Magnussen and that whole thing last week. I feel like there was a lot less of great races. I think a lot of this season, there was a lot of hype into the season as far as the new cars, the battle Verstappen and Hamilton had. Will that repeat? And then we slowly realized that that wasn't necessarily the case. Mercedes didn't have the car this year. Red Bull did. A lot of domination from Max and Red Bull. The races, kind of like today, were not always so close. I mean, they said at the end of the season, at the end of the race today, and I'm like, really? He won that many? He won 15 races. Like, that's insane how many races he won.
And sure, it's a longer season, so he has more opportunities to get wins, but like the percentage of wins still stacks up with all-time great seasons.
Red Bull as a
Yeah.
team, they won 17 races out of 22, 77% win total this year.
Dominance. We're watching greatness.
Yeah, and I've always said it. I don't mind dominance. I respect Red Bull just the way Mercedes have been doing it the last however many years. I think it's really incredible to see Max win this many races, whether you like him or not. I think winning in F1 is very hard, and for a team to do it on such a dominant factor, you have to respect it and appreciate it, and you can't be mad at Red Bull for putting out a dominant car. You have to be mad, if you want close racing, at the other 9 teams that have not been able to produce a great car. Why
say
are
that-
you guys so slow compared to this team? Figure it out, and then you can have close racing. And I've said that with Mercedes, I'll say it with Red Bull, and any other team. I want it to be close, This season, there was some good races here and there. I think we all, as F1 fans, want a good race. Yes, you can still have Max winning it if you're a Max fan or Hamilton, but I still think we all like to see a battle for the win. Nobody just likes it's not entertaining. You just simply sleep like I did today. And many races this year, like Belgium, like Zandvoort, Russia, which was canceled because of their thing, not Russia, Monza, and a whole bunch of other ones. We want it to be close, but you can't be mad at Red Bull for doing what they're doing.
You might have to tell this to the Red Bull fans because that's what they're doing the whole season since they were building better cars.
Yeah, and it's these years now that Mercedes it's almost completely flopped or flip flopped, and yet when Mercedes was winning all these different years and pretty dominant, they could afford to have like a mess up in the strategy because the competition was a little farther away, and if something did go wrong, they were able to bounce back and grab the win. Still, same with Mercedes. Now Mercedes are going to be trying to play catch up and see if they could produce something for next year. But if they can't do it next year, then they'll have to maybe, tick away, maybe get a win or two, and then still improve like Red Bull have been doing. But ideally, you want it to be as close as possible, but you're always going to have one team at some point be the dominant team. Although coming into the season, a lot of people, looked at Ferrari. I mean, people forget that Leclerc and Ferrari, up until I want to say like,
I was about to bring up this point myself.
yeah, go ahead. You can finish it for me. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say like this feels so long ago that people will forget Ferrari was a championship contender. In Australia, Leclerc won by like 50 seconds. It was insane. In Austria, Red Bull tripped up a little bit, and I think it may have been a Ferrari 1-2. I know they both showed up pretty well. And then it wasn't really until France where that dream kind of died. Which, how far into the season was that? Seems like a long time
France
ago.
was, I'm looking at it now. France was July 24th. Max won. Yeah, and Leclerc went off into that corner towards the end.
Yeah,
of
France
the
was
second
around
half.
12. 12 out of 22, that's more than halfway through the season. It's insane how it feels so dead.
And I know
that
people that had said that, oh, the Leclerc had. I don't know if you guys can do a quick Google if you're just twiddling your thumbs. Google it.
I have Leclerc's results up.
See what was the biggest gap that Leclerc, because he was the
Oh,
championship leader.
I just have.
If you can, well, maybe do some
It
digging.
was like 75 or something.
Yeah, all right. So, okay, let's go with that number. I think it was like 75, 77 points. And people were like, "Oh, the championship's wrapped up. Leclerc's got it. This is the season. Ferrari's back." I'm like, "No. Like how many years even when Vettel was at 2017, 2018, Ferrari comes out of the gate really strong, but they're not able to compete throughout the entire season. The seasons are getting longer and longer."
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to figure that out. They need a new team boss. They need to figure things out. They started off really well, and people said, "Oh, this was it. Leclerc's got it." And little by little, you started to see them slip away. And honestly, as of the last few races, they've been pretty much the third, even like a fourth quickest team at some tracks, and they just completely fell off. Also,
I may have just confirmed it. What I think it was a 75
was
point
it
lead.
75 points? That's 3 races that you can just give up, and Max. And now what's the gap difference? So it went from 75 points,
Like 146, maybe.
yeah, like what swing is that? That's incredible.
It's incalculable, like 210.
Like that's kind of insane how they were able to bounce back Red Bull so strong. But at the beginning, like Red Bull had reliability issues, obviously at Bahrain, and then also again at, was it Australia or maybe another track? And then it switched to then Ferrari were having the issues. and Red Bull figured it out early, and it never really became an issue again. Whereas Ferrari kind of like was here and there. And then you also had Sainz have some really like pathetic DNFs. One of them was at Australia. Another one was at Imola. That was like the worst weeks to be a Sainz fan when he got hit by Ricardo and he just like got beached into the sand on the opening lap, and that was your race. It was kind of pathetic.
One other thing I wanted to bring up about this season was we're talking about dominance, and the top 3 teams were dominant. There was just one midfield driver to get on the podium this season. Do you know who that was?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Lando Norris.
Correct. Lando Norris, the only midfield driver to end on the podium, and I saw some people talking online like he must have had one of the most boring seasons of all time. He was just stuck in P7 every race, like with a gap behind the top 6 of the top 3 teams, and then always ahead of like Ocon, Alonso, whoever's in P8 on any given race. He's just riding in no man's land, P7 day in day out. So shout out to him for having as good of a season as he can in a not great car.
Yeah, and he was a lot better than Ricardo too. Ricardo was down in 11th points, and most of the time was finishing outside of the top 10 in each race, while Lando was still managing to get points.
Ricardo's was under contract and got bought out because of how bad Lando outraced him.
Yeah, and you look back at the constructors, obviously, the season ended. Alpine was able to beat out McLaren. It was 173 to 159, but McLaren ended to part ways with Ricardo due to that fact. I mean, if they try to put someone else into the second seat who can score a little bit more frequently, that would have been P4 in the constructors table. It's Piastri that's going into this car? So we'll see, obviously a rookie, but they see more upside in the future, with this pairing than something that wasn't working with Ricardo and McLaren. But yeah, it was interesting. Alpine, I thought, was really strong this year. I thought they had many races where they just were pretty consistent. They had some reliability issues, obviously, today, and I think last week with Alonso again. But if you look on track almost every single week, it's always Ocon and Alonso, like right there with each other. And that's good with the team. You want that when you're a team because that means you're really getting the maximum out of the car because both drivers are there. Other than McLaren, when you have Lando's all the way up there and then Ricardo's like 5-6 positions below, you're really not maximizing the car, and I think that's why Alpine was able to beat out and get P4. I do wish next season and eventually we get to see another team enter more regularly for race wins and podiums. We still, in this hybrid turbo era, only have seen the big 3 teams really be contenders, and that's Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. We've yet to see another team enter that equation. So I don't care who it is, if it's Alpine, if it's Aston Martin, if it's McLaren, is it a long shot Williams, Audi that come in, whatever. I want to see another team up in the top 3 because that, more teams who can compete, the better. We got to bring the midfield battling, how tight that is, up to the front, and you need that with more teams. So I hope we get that.
Yeah.
I guess you agree.
On to next season.
Yeah, pretty much. Who do you think's the closest to being into the top 3?
What do you mean? Like which driver?
Yeah, which team? What team do you
What team
think
is next?
is it Aston Martin? Will
like
there be?
McLaren.
I like
Yep.
McLaren. I think
McLaren.
they got the funding, even though they dropped out to Alpine. They seem more put together. Alpine comes off as dysfunctional to me, maybe just because of the Ocon Alonso stuff, and the way they handled Piastri. They just seem kind of like a mess. So I like McLaren. Zach Brown's done a lot of strides with this team. This year was kind of a step back with new regulations and everything, and they got a lot of money behind them. So I think McLaren could be the fourth team, maybe.
Nice. Anything else stick out in this season? Anything else you guys wanted to mention that good races, bad
Do a
races?
send off for Latifi.
Should we do a ceremony?
Yeah,
He's tied on 2 points with Nick DeVries for 20.
I apologize because last week I think I said he was 21st in the standings. I forgot he scored 2 points, so he did beat Hulkenberg this year.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, Nick DeVries, he got points before Latifi, but I guess I'm looking on ESPN on the standings as Latifi 20th, DeVries 21st, but they're tied. But
And they both had a P8, didn't they?
yeah, same position. But
So I guess maybe Latifi's next best result was better than DeVries' no result.
yeah, something. But he did finish. He got 8.2, eighth
Yeah.
position. Yeah, and it's gonna be.
AlphaTauri was a
different.
disappointment this year.
Yeah, they
Oh,
finished
in the
9.
Discord, check the TCR Discord link in the description. We had predictions before the season on constructors. Those are still pinned messages. We should review those.
Sorry, what was that?
Before the season started, I think you asked people to predict the constructors standings.
Oh, we did.
Those messages.
Oh yeah. All right. You want to go through them now?
Yeah, we should just
We
skip
have
through
some
it.
time. Let's do it.
I think
Let's
I
do
did
it.
good, except for I expected AlphaTauri to be better.
Yeah, right. So I'm only gonna do.
I'll start with reading the constructors one more time to remind the listeners. P1, Red Bull. P2, Ferrari. P3, Mercedes. 4, Alpine. 5, McLaren. 6, Alfa Romeo. 7, Aston Martin. 8, Haas. 9, AlphaTauri. 10, Williams.
Very well. You did a great job reading, Chabar.
Thanks.
We're gonna go to. Now these are everybody they're pinned in Motorsport Chat. So this was before probably March 19th is a lot of these dates. So we're gonna go with Beck 25. It said Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, McLaren. So far, so good. Although he put Haas in P6, Alpha, Tauri, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, and Williams in P10. So that was actually pretty strong. We're going to TeeJay, who had picked Mercedes. Okay, I mean, okay, you could say that. Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Alpine, you got that one right. AlphaTauri, McLaren, Haas, Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, and Williams. You got that one right too. That was different. Professional said Mercedes, Alpine.
Bold. I like it. Bold.
Yikes.
Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Haas, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, and Williams. So far so good with the Williams predictions. Until we get to Jabbar, who botched that one. We go Jabbar. He had picked Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, AlphaTauri, McLaren, Haas, Aston Martin, Williams, and Alfa Romeo, which was not the case.
I got Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri very wrong, but how about the top 4? Nailed it.
Yes, sir. A few more here. We got Silent. Did Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, Alpine, McLaren, Aston Martin, Haas, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, and Williams. Tasmanian Devil did Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Haas, Alfa Romeo, Williams. You got the Aston Martin and P7, right?
Yep.
P8 Haas. You just had to really switch the
Who is this?
AlphaTauri. Taz. He had
Taz,
Alfa Romeo in 9th, AlphaTauri in 6th, but if they swapped that would have been pretty good. And he had to switch McLaren Alpine and then Red Bull and Mercedes, so he was only like 3 decisions away from it. Bats Plus did Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, AlphaTauri, Haas, McLaren, Alpine, Alfa Romeo, Williams, and Aston Martin for the bottom. And this was mine. Oh, I don't know if I got any right. Ooh. Okay, so I went with Mercedes, Ferrari, I got one right. Red Bull, McLaren, got that wrong. AlphaTauri, Alpine, Aston Martin, Haas.
you got that one.
I got Aston Martin, I got Haas, but then I went Williams and then Alfa Romeo. And that's everyone that we had pinned, so nobody got it right, but Spec Ops probably was the closest. And once again, he did Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, McLaren, flawless through all of that. But then he went Haas, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, and Williams. So he did a good job there. Yeah, that's always fun. We'll do it again for next season.
Join
I hope.
Discord and drop predictions for next season.
Absolutely, we'll pin it. And as for everyone, Camden and D'Angelo, and we didn't get any of yours in, so that's why we didn't say it. But you wouldn't have gotten it right anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Mercedes 2023. I'm putting that right now. Come back.
Jesus, no. No.
Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
just
No,
jinxed it,
I
bro.
shouldn't. Yeah. No, I'm the king of cursing stuff. Never mind. Never mind.
Too late, you already said it. You already said it.
Knock on wood right now, bro.
Knock on
Your
the
wood. You got thick wood.
Hey yo.
I'm knocking for you, bro. 'cause I know
Pause.
you're not gonna do it.
All right, where are we going with this? We got to keep this somewhat friendly here.
At least PG-13.
At least.
You don't watch the Golden
PG-18.
broadcast, do you?
Oh.
You definitely don't watch the Golden broadcast. They are borderline PG. Tune in Wednesday.
No, we keep
TeeJay and
it PG. What are you talking
No,
about, Ken?
no, we don't, TeeJay.
Yes, we
no,
do. Yes, we do. Come on. Don't be giving wrong ideas, bro.
Well, I guess there's only one way to find out. You got to tune in Wednesdays. Not this Wednesday,
gay.
but oh man, well you can see where this conversation's going.
say that.
Oh, it's right there.
Actually, we'll go to D'Angelo. Final thoughts. You usually give the sum up reviews. What do you think
Yes, my
sums
short
this
sentence.
season up?
More boring than it should have been.
Yeah.
Wait, huh? More
What?
boring than it should. More boring than it should. Wait.
He's saying it should be less boring than what it was.
Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah, I had a brain for it. My bad.
It's all right. Yeah, I kind of agree with it. It was an okay season. It was long. I wish there was more battles for the win. The outcome could have still been the same, but the battles, I hope, were a little bit better. I think in the earlier half of the season, the teams were still figuring the cars out, these new cars, and the battles weren't as good as they were until like the second half of the season. I thought we saw some good racing. Brazil was probably one of my favorite races throughout the season. There was others that I'm probably forgetting about, but
What color sector would you give this season?
oh, here we go again with this stupid. It's a very poorly designed system,
design.
but if we were to go with
Purple.
these,
Okay, what if I said you rate the
stickers-
season from a scale of 1 to 4?
Well, why 1
One
to
to-
4? What?
1 to 4 or what?
That's what the same thing as the colors is, basically.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Or 2 or 3, do you like that better? How many stars up to 4?
good
I'll do the sectors instead because that
Let's go.
I would probably say I'd have to give it a. I mean,
Doing yellow or green, probably, right?
yeah. I mean, it definitely wasn't purple. Ah. Yeah, I
I
guess.
think it's a soft green. I'm giving it a soft green.
Yeah, it's like Sector 1 was green, Sector, right? Because the first
Sector
part, if
1
you,
was kind of almost purple.
yeah, it was like green. It was like almost your best sector, and then middle sector was like okay, yellow, and then the third sector was like I think we got saved a little bit with some good racing at Brazil and other things like that. Maybe it came back to a green, but it was a good season for what it was. But
And also considering that it's a new regulation and it shows that the regulation changes are working as they're intended to be, promote closer racing and have more battles on track. I mean, I think we had a couple of battles, even though it wasn't at the top, but it was in the midfield. We could see that there were a lot of cars, like, exchanging positions, I think, throughout the season. So it's a step in the right direction for F1.
Mm-hmm.
and Camden D'Angelo, what do you guys think?
Well, I am going to rate this out of 10 because I'm normal, and I think that's easier to follow.
Really not.
It's great to have someone like you on the podcast, Camden. Someone who we
Thank
can,
you.
Someone who is
actually have a
rational.
conversation. Yeah, rational in their decision making.
Yeah, I need to be
Go
here
ahead,
more
Camden.
often. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Really, like I think this was a good season when it came to the racing, and obviously like it was a pretty much a one-man show. Like Max won most of the races, but it was still exciting. There was still a lot of action, a lot of drama, and I think that's what we need if we want to continue to get fans the way we've been getting the past couple of seasons. And I think we're going to up that maybe to an 8 or a 9 next season, just because you got some new stuff happening, like Las Vegas. Like I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, honestly, I thought it was a good season, really.
D'Angelo?
Sounds like a green.
Yes.
I'd say a 6 out of 10. I mean, yeah, there were some good parts in the season, but after the first part of the season when Max started winning, no, I don't think anyone in the F1 world thought, especially after France, it's like, okay, Max is going to F up at some point. I don't think anyone thought that, so it just kind of waned itself.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go one step further. Now that we're having an actual rating system, I'd probably go with 5 out of 10, honestly. And here's why: because although the first quarter, or I would say the first quarter, I wouldn't say first half. I'd say the first quarter was like interesting to see Ferrari and Red Bull.
First sector.
It it
Oh,
fell
shut
off
up.
a little bit, and it, it was pretty much just Max and Red Bull, and it was very hard to watch like a qualifying session because you'd pretty much most likely see Max get it, and or whatever the situation. Obviously not every weekend, but most weekends, and it wouldn't really be too close. Like you can tell when the commentators Crofty and Brundle are like you know when other people are finishing their laps in qualifying, and they're not really like, oh, they're going for pole, because they see the actual sector times, and they actually can see if they're going purple or green, and most times it's green or yellow, and they know they're not going to get the pole. And even in the race, we've seen like races when Mercedes were dominating with Lewis, like there would be some weekends where Bottas would actually go out there and like win over Hamilton. Not every weekend, but when have we seen Perez do that? We've never seen him do that. Never. Like when is a eh,
As I think, was it Mexico last? Wait, was it? No, it wasn't Mexico. I'm tweaking.
I mean he's won, but like on track, when did Perez ever finish first and Max finish second without something going wrong for Max to finish second, meaning everything he did was correct and did everything, but still lost. That almost never happened. I don't think it ever has.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Like Hamilton, at some points, he went for pole and Bottas gets it. He got pole. Like, the opening race, I think it was 2019, he won the opening race. So you go back to that stat of drivers who won the first opening race and not win the championship. Bottas won Australia. He got pole and he won the race by 20 seconds against Lewis Hamilton. You'll never see that with Perez, ever. So even when Red Bull was winning, it was no competition. Perez wasn't even there. So that's what made it even harder. At least when Hamilton was there, Bottas sometimes here and there would be able to challenge Hamilton, and maybe not for the entire race, but even for like the first stint or something. We've never seen, like even today, Perez started second and he just wasn't able to, he was so far back. It just, I don't know.
When we think about it, does that come to the car being suited to Max more, or it's just Paris not being good enough?
I think it's the car, because Max have been there since 2016 and he's had, it's his team. And he's had a lot of other teammates in the past for when you go through the Gasly Albon year or two, they didn't really have much say in developing the car. So it was really Max was the only one to really lean over to as far as development. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, I think it is the car, but it's also, I think Max is just way better of a driver than Perez. Max is in his prime of his career, and that prime could be for many, many years. Some could argue even at Lewis at age 36 or so, whatever he is he's still in his prime as far as where he's competing. His prime was many years. I don't think he's past it, but yeah, I think it's many factors, but ideally you want championship between two teams, but if you can't, then you at least want the two drivers in that one team to be somewhat close. And we don't see that at Red Bull. I think with Mercedes, with Russell and Lewis, you'll see that. With Ferrari, you've seen that here and there. Sainz and Leclerc will go either or. But yeah. So that's my rating. But any final thoughts on the 2022 F1 season?
I'm glad it's over and can't wait for 2023.
Yeah.
Max.
What was that, Shabar?
I said congrats, Max.
Yeah.
But Max, yep, you did an amazing job. The car was good, but without having a good driver to put it up there, then there's no point in making a good car. So he's an excellent driver. He deserves the championship, and hopefully next season there are more like 3-4 drivers battling for the driver championship, not just 2 or 1.
Yeah, and I think, we can all have this debate on Red Bull versus Mercedes. I think it's a very polarizing argument, but I don't think anyone can deny that Max is just one hell of a driver. You can have a great car, but you need a great driver to be able to win not just one championship, but multiple championships. And I think we'll see that for at least the next couple of years of Red Bull and Max winning championships. That's why it worked with Lewis and Mercedes, Schumacher and Ferrari. I think it's just a great match that they have going at Red Bull right now, and this is the present and the future, it looks like.
Absolutely, well said.
Agreed and agreed. Well, I think that'll do it for this one. Definitely make sure to follow TCR on all socials, and definitely join the TCR Discord server where we are the most active. And thanks once again for our guest TeeJay for joining us on this one.
For having me.
Absolutely. And until next week, thank you for listening.
We signing off.
Signing off.